admit that we can't solve these problems alone. We point to our heroes and ancestors who sacrificed so much, often their very lives, to end slavery, lynching, and Jim Crow segregation. Didn't they prove Bell wrong? Didn't they prove that racial justice can be won? We call out their names: Ella Baker, Ida B. Wells, Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, Thurgood Marshall, and on and on. Thanks to their courage, we say, look how far we've come. We remind people that a mixed-race man named Barack Obama became President of the United States just 40 years after the old Jim Crow system was brought to its knees. Doesn't Obama himself, the mere fact of him, prove Bell wrong? Just look at Obama. Well, don't look at him now that he's been replaced by a narcissistic Nazi sympathizer. Look at him in 2008. After centuries of slavery, followed by 100 years of white terrorism and legal discrimination, the unimaginable happened. A multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-class movement swept a black man into the highest office in the land. A movement that said, yes, we can. Yes, we can make America what it must become. And yet, reading Bell's words today, 25 years after the book was published, I find it difficult to refute the nuanced argument he weaves so gracefully and unapologetically in these pages. I read his words, and chills sweep over me. Something lurks in these pages that is eerily prophetic, almost haunting, and yet, at the same time, oddly reassuring. The truth about race and justice in America is always more liberating than the alternative. No doubt there will be those who read this book and find it depressing, disturbing, foolish, or misguided, just as some people did back when it was first released. Some will mock or dismiss the allegories and parables. I remember being confused when I first read Bell's short stories as a law student. I was stunned not only by the content but also by the simplicity of the parables. Why would a renowned constitutional law scholar choose to write bizarre fictional dialogues involving an imaginary alter ego? Why were the stories written in such a simple, straightforward fashion, using language an eighth grader could understand? Weren't law professors supposed to write stuff that only other academics could comprehend? I will confess that I didn't fully appreciate the genius and power of these stories until I began discussing and debating them with others inside and outside classrooms. For many of my law school classmates, especially those of us who were black and brown, the parables functioned like a key to a secret door that we did not know had been locked within us. Once the door was opened, we found ourselves sharing our own stories, personal experiences with race and racism, including generational pain and trauma, many of which we had not had the courage to reveal before. And many of us began asking questions out loud that had been buried deep within us, locked away out of necessity or convenience or habit. Back then, in 1992, when this book was originally released, the mere act of telling stories that challenged the assumption of neutrality in the law or that questioned the utility of law, litigation, or policy reform was deemed a radical, subversive act in many law schools. I was a student at Stanford Law School at that time, and I remember well the battles that raged among faculty members as well as students regarding whether and to what extent Bell's claims and the entire field of critical race theory ought to be taken seriously. Here we are, 25 years later. Bell's commitment to storytelling is no longer controversial in the legal academy. Women, Latinx, and queer scholars have found their voice in legal scholarship in no small part because of the doors Derrick Bell threw wide open. Yet, just as Bell predicted, whatever progress has been made has been matched by devastating,